Зараз ми надаємо слово пані Юлії Орловій, генеральній директорці видавництва Vivat. Будь ласка, пані Юлія.
Доброго дня, пані та панове. Я щиро вдячна за запрошення. Для мене це можливість розповісти, як і в яких умовах живуть та тримаються українські видавці.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very grateful for this invitation and for this opportunity to speak to you in person about conditions which Ukrainian publishers have to live in right now.
На жаль, досвід у нас такий, що я не хочу, щоб ви ним скористалися, але я б хотіла, щоб ви все почули з перших вуст.
Unfortunately, the experience that we're living through is such that I don't want anyone to experience in their life, but at least I want to speak to you about this in person.
Наше видавництво Vivat розташоване на сході України, в Харкові. До кордону з Росією у нас 40 кілометрів. І станом на сьогодні це одне з найбільш обстрілюваних міст.
Our publishing house, Vivat, is located in the east of Ukraine, in Kharkiv, which is 40 kilometers to the Russian border. And as of today, this is one of the most shelled areas and cities in Ukraine.
Зрозуміло, що при постійній фізичній загрозі життю більшість людей з видавництва вимушені були виїхати з Харкова. І зараз ми всі розкидані по всій Україні та за кордоном.
And quite understandably, because of this constant physical threat to life, most of people from the publishing industry, and probably around 80% of people had no choice but to leave Kharkiv, and they're now scattered all across Ukraine and abroad.
Ми працюємо дистанційно вже понад 11 місяців. Чесно кажучи, нам дуже важко в таких умовах утримувати більш ніж 100 людей.
We work remotely for the last 11 months, and in these conditions, it's quite frankly very difficult for us to pay salaries to more than 100 people.
Частину товару, понад 20 вантажівок, ми вивезли з Харкова в умовно безпечне місто, щоб зберегти книжки. У нас розірвані
Part of our produce, and that's probably about 20 lorries, we had to move from Kharkiv to save the books.
У нас розірвані практично всі бізнес-ланцюжки, але ми все одно намагаємось працювати, і це наш перший виклик.
And all our business links are practically now not operating. They're all dismantled, and nevertheless we continue our work, and this is our first challenge.
Другий. Ми з вами тут всі з видавничого бізнесу, і ми з вами знаємо, що для створення книжок потрібна любов і креатив. Але зараз, здебільшого, ми відчуваємо невизначеність у майбутньому, страх за своїх дітей та близьких, сум кожного дня за нашими загинутими воїнами.
Second of all, we all know, working in publishing industry, to create books, you need to have love and creativity. And right now, we mostly feel uncertainty for our future, fear for our children and our families, and sorrow for our soldiers that lost their lives.
Це дійсно впливає на психологічний стан наших працівників. І це ми ще якось підлаштовуємось до постійних відключень світла, а зі світлом і зв'язку.
And this constantly has a psychological, mental effect on our workers. And we also have to adjust to constant power cuts.
Чесно кажучи, важко і писати, і видавати, коли летять бомби і ракети.
And also we have the problem with the internet connection. And quite frankly, it's really hard to write and publish when you have bombs falling on your heads and you have missiles striking everywhere and putting your life in danger.
Третій виклик. Як ви всі знаєте, зараз частина українських територій окупована. Таким чином ми втратили там і читачів.
The third challenge is that, as you are aware, a part of Ukrainian territory is now under Russian occupation, and therefore we lost a part of our audience, our readers.
І от декілька тижнів тому виявилось, що дуже багато книжок нашого видавництва Vivat визначено на окупованих територіях як екстремістська література.
And a few weeks ago, we found out that a lot of our books that our publishing house printed, they are now regarded on those occupied territories by Russians as extremist literature.
Здебільшого це історичні книжки. І це пряма загроза свободі публікації взагалі. Це обмеження інформації, вилучення книжок – це інструмент інформаційної війни.
And most of those books that Russia now claims to be extremist literature, most of those books are history books. And this is a direct threat to the general freedom to publish. This is the restriction of information, and removal of these books, destruction of these books, is one of the means of the informational propaganda war.
На жаль, Vivat вже не вперше бореться за свободу слова. 2 роки тому була спроба Медведчука заборонити друк та розповсюдження книги «Справа Василя Стуса».
Unfortunately, this is not the first time that Vivat Publishing House has to fight for the freedom of speech and expression. 2 years ago, there was an attempt when Medvedchuk was trying to prohibit printing and dissemination of the book by Vakhtang Kapyani, the case of Vasil Stus.
Але нам в суді вдалося відстояти право на її публікацію і свободу слова в Україні.
But we managed to defend in court, to defend successfully in court the right to publish and the right to free expression of speech in Ukraine.
Хотілося б сказати, що всупереч усім викликам та обставинам, в минулому році ми випустили 360 тайтлів.
I'd like to say that in spite of all the challenges and the current situation, we managed to print 360 titles.
Продали 40 тайтлів у 15 країн та придбали понад 100 тайтлів. І зараз ми будуємо великі плани на майбутнє.
And we sold 40 titles in 15 countries. We purchased 95 titles, and we are now planning our work for the future.
Наші підсумки року показали, що українці прагнуть читати. Читання є для нас психологічним порятунком від жахів війни.
And on the basis of our work results for the last year, we can make a conclusion that Ukrainians strive to read, and reading is a mental and a psychological salvation from all the horrors of war.
На завершення свого виступу я б хотіла подякувати за можливість привернути вашу увагу до українських видавництв та українських книг. і розповісти, що нам складно, але ми боремось і поборемо. Але ми будемо вам вдячні за підтримку.
To finish my presentation, I would like to say a huge thank you for this opportunity to draw your attention to Ukrainian publishers and Ukrainian books, and to tell you how difficult it is for us now, how we're fighting and how we carry on fighting. And we will be really grateful for your support.
По-перше, хотілося б, щоб голос українських авторів все гучніше звучав у світі.
First of all, we would like you to help us to make it possible for Ukrainian authors to be heard in the world louder and louder.
Повірте, ви відкриєте для себе професійних авторів та ілюстраторів. Ви будете вражені рівнем текстів.
And believe me, you will be astonished. You will discover for yourselves professional authors and illustrators, and you will be surprised with the level of their text.
Друге питання – заповнення українського ринку актуальними перекладними тайтлами.
The second issue that you could assist us with is to fill the Ukrainian market with the current titles translated into Ukrainian.
Зараз в Україні найбільш перекладають з англійської, перепрошую.
At present, the majority of books translated on the Ukrainian market is only from English into Ukrainian.
Але ми б хотіли познайомити українського читача з авторами з усього світу, і для цього нам потрібна грантова підтримка перекладів.
And we would like our Ukrainian readers to be introduced to the authors from all over the world. And for this, we need grant support for translators and translations.
І ще один важливий момент. Від початку повномасштабного вторгнення, тікаючи від війни, з України виїхало біля 15 мільйонів українців. Ви тільки вдумайтесь в цю цифру.
And last but not least, from the start of the Russian invasion, fleeing war in Ukraine, 15 million Ukrainians left the country. You just think about this number, 15 million people.
Всі ми зараз зіштовхнулися з проблемою задоволення попиту українців, що опинилися за кордоном, на українську книжку.
And we now all are facing the same challenge to meet the demand from the Ukrainians who are now staying abroad and who want to read Ukrainian books while they are abroad.
Vivat вже відкрив своє представництво в Польщі і шукає партнерів для співробітництва.
Vivat publishing house has already opened its representative office in Poland, and we are looking for partners for cooperation.
Це можуть бути книжкові мережі, бібліотеки, державні та приватні ініціативи.
These could be book networks, libraries, public and private initiatives.
Тільки так, поєднуючи зусилля видавців, ми з'єднаємо світ у боротьбі з безперечним злом.
And only in this way, if we pool all the efforts and resources from publishers from all over the world, we can unite the world in fighting this apparent evil of Russia.
У перемозі України – перемога всього світу. Слава Україні!
And if Ukraine wins, the whole world will win too. Glory to Ukraine.
Дякую.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all this information, Yuliia, and also for your suggestions on how our community can help you and support you and cooperate.
Дуже вам дякую, пані Юлія, за вашу промову і за ваші пропозиції стосовно того, як міжнародна спільнота може допомогти і співпрацювати.
Okay, we will then move on. I see that time is running. Marjana Savka is the next one. She's a publisher and also a writer, and also a performer and a singer, I've been told, and also a member of the Ukrainian Pen Center.
Отже, ми бачимо, що час спливає. Ми зараз перейдемо до нашої наступної представниці, яка буде зараз виступати. Це Мар'яна Савка. Будь ласка, Мар'яна.
Thank you, dear colleagues and dear friends from any country. I would like to ask, maybe it can be better for this working time to speak in English. What do you think?
If you can do that, and if that's acceptable for the others, that would be very, very good for the time.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for your understanding us, and thank you for your standing with Ukraine. It is really important for us if you see us. First of all, I want to say that I feel very sorry for all of those who suffered in Turkey, Syria, and other countries from the terrible earthquake. No one deserves such a disaster, as there is similar to the consequences of the war. And unfortunately, we know a lot about this war in Ukraine. Foreign and Ukrainian experts say that Putin started the war against Ukraine because he didn't understand what Ukraine is. Maybe not only Putin didn't understand what Ukraine and Ukrainians are. Perhaps the whole world had too unclear view of Ukraine. A few days ago, I had conversation with my author, Italian writer, Paolo Giordano. In these days, Giordano in Ukraine, he's visiting eastern cities and trying to see the consequences of this war with his own eyes. He told me that Italians, writers particularly, don't know and don't understand Ukrainian realities because they had no reason to come here, and they formed their own impression in Ukraine by looking at Ukrainian immigrant women who clean and take care the elderly in Italy. That is Italian thing about Ukrainians, like a nation of cleaners. When you see only cleaners, it is hard to imagine that there are still intellectuals, businessmen, writers, artists in the country. It is hard to imagine that Ukraine has become a smartphone country, of course. So, however, we still have a lot to change, really. And first of all, I hope we have already particularly achieved this. We must get rid of Russia's imperial influence forever. For more than 30 years of Ukrainian independence, Ukraine has not become an understandable country for many countries in the world because it has not been able to tell about itself properly. I see this a huge fault of all our governments, which did not know how to place the right accent correctly and did not know how to promote our country and our culture. For many years, you didn't see Ukraine at the major exhibitions, and you didn't see national stand of Ukraine. So unfortunately, we Ukrainians have allowed the whole world to form an image of our country through the prism of Russian propaganda. We are aware of our guilt in allowing ourselves to be treated as a marginal country with a marginal culture. Only in 2016, We created the Ukrainian Book Institute. It was very important for us. We allowed our book market to be secondary to the Russian market. For example, buying rights to foreign books through Russian agents. For many years, we allowed Russian booksellers to almost completely occupy Ukrainian book retail. And until 2014, there were many times more Russian books than Ukrainian books on the shelves of bookstores. I hope I never see them there again. I represent a publishing house, the Old Line Publishing House, that has been in the market more than 21 years. We started with a team of 2 people and became one of the most influential in Ukraine. And this year we were among the 5 nominees for the best publishing house in Europe in the Bologna Book Fair. We are lucky to be in the west of the country. And apart from a few times when our books were burned during the bombing in the gas station and shopping centers where they are sold, we were particularly unscathed. This is the first glance. We live in Lviv, which has become a new home for the 150,000 people. This is a city that has destroyed several power stations, electricity stations. A city that works quietly despite regularly scheduled blackouts. This is a city that has turned its libraries into humanitarian storages where people make camouflage nets. This is a city that constantly receives evacuation wagons with wounded people without arms and legs. We live as fully as possible. We continue to hold presentations in bookstores and bomb shelters, and when the lights go out, we light candles. Unlike many other publishing houses, especially those in the East, we are fully operational. Also, we made 100 titles per 2022, and it was for 30 titles less than we planned. And every day we have new challenges. Almost all of us have loved ones, some relatives at the front. We are constantly under the horrible stress of news. We are looking for a way to provide generators for our offices and bookstores and coffee shops. So we are trying to make a light. We stop work and go down to the shelter when the alarm sounds. For example, yesterday, our author, Volodymyr Afonin, interrupted the presentation, the children's book in Lviv, and then went down there with children to the shelter. That was 2 days ago. So, and continued the conversation with children in the shelter. Many of our women writers, artists, translators had to leave the country with their children, and it is not easy to keep this communication in their good work like regularly. My 8-year-old son, puts a flashlight in the book to his safety backpack, because when they are sitting in the shelter during the air alarm, there may be no light, but you can read with the flashlight, and they are reading with the flashlight. But we have a home, and my son has a school. Many children in Ukraine don't have this. We return from the office to home where there is no light. And there is no light, no heating, no internet and mobile communication, no wireless. But we are not complaining because people in cities near the front line live in basements without light, heating and food. In the morning, we watch the news and photos of destroyed houses, libraries, schools, kindergartens, and go to work. For our workers in the army, several officers in the army, several of our workers were under occupation. We were forced to close one of the Kyiv bookstores because the students did not return to study at the university next to it. In spite of everything, the books are sold, even the price are going up. And we were very, very happy about this because by selling our books, we will be able to be a resource for our country, for our military on the front line. Wherever we are in the country or abroad, we think about how we can still support the Ukraine and Ukrainian army, because there is no because there is no other way out, neither for us nor for you, but to defeat Russia with weapons. How lucky that many foreigners already understand this. If he still does not understand, if somebody still don't understand, it is only because they were not here and they didn't see the scales of the destruction and the scale of Russian crimes, because they didn't see the diary of Volodya Vakulenko, our children's writer, who did not leave Izium and with his son, and he was brutally targeted by Russian occupiers. We feel the attention and support from many countries of the world. First of all, help in providing our country with weapons, medicines, and humanitarian aid. In the first months, the first floor of my office, it was like storage of hospital or medicine. So we are very, very thankful for all that we got from abroad and from different countries. So now we are at least volunteers, and tomorrow we can become soldiers. And there is a reality for which we must be ready. We were greatly supported by foreign colleagues who bought the right to the books of our authors. This year we signed the most deals in our history, 67 titles. The rights for 67 titles. We had successful Frankfurt, and we are going to Bologna. What I want to say, what I want to address to you, international community of publishers, we don't want to be pitied. We are very strong and resistible. We need your willingness to speak on the same level, to be on the equal footing, to treat Ukrainian publishers as full-fledged book market, to see us as full-fledged players and even competitors. We really want you to be motivated to see and read our books, translate them and sell them in your bookstores. We want you to invite our authors and illustrators to join your workshops or festivals. And you can already see the level of many of our artists working with publishers around the world. Any help would be greatly appreciated. and thank you for all your help. But first of all, we need an understanding of our values and our ideals. It so happened that Ukraine is not just defending itself. Ukraine is creating new humanistic meanings, because no one has the right to take away a person's dignity and freedom. For me, freedom is maybe the most important thing in my life. I really want us to finally become visible to the world, not only because we are fighting in this terrible, crazy war, but because we are creative, talented, interesting, progressive people who are creating the future of New Europe without this bloody monster. And thank you to each of you.
Thank you very much, Marjana, both for describing your professional situation, but also your personal appeal. Thank you very much. I would like to move on to our next speaker, who is Ostap Slyvynsky, who is both a poet and essayist, translator, and also a literary critic, and is also the vice president of PEN in Ukraine.
Дуже вам дякую. А зараз ми тепер надамо слово пану Остапу Славинському. Будь ласка.
Thank you, colleagues. I feel really honored and happy to be a part of this event. Thank you for inviting me, though I'm not a publisher. And after these very powerful and important messages expressed by Marjana, I'd like not only to present briefly the impact of Russian aggression on Ukrainian culture, of how it looks like from my point of view as a member of Ukrainian creative community, but also I'll try to give you some maybe more useful information to suggest some informational resources you can use in your publishing activity. It's obvious that ongoing Russia's war is not a war against Ukrainian government or so-called Kiev regime, as Russian authorities claim, but it's a war against Ukrainian identity. It's a typical colonial war aimed at destroying the culture of the conquered territories, to merge the culture of these territories with the culture of the metropolis. In the first days of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a missile struck the local history museum in Ivankiv near Kiev, in the Kiev region, setting it on fire. Among the exhibits of the museum were the works of Maria Primachenko, a unique folk artist recognized by Pablo Picasso and Marc Chagall. It was the only building in the village to be struck. Later in May, as a result of artillery shelling, the Memorial Museum of Grigory Skovoroda, the outstanding Ukrainian philosopher, was completely destroyed. And the situation was quite similar. The shot was accurate and there were no military targets or important infrastructure objects nearby. So it's a deliberate attack against Ukrainian culture. One of the first things that invaders do after occupying Ukrainian territories is a fight against language. They replace road signs, remove advertisements and information boards, everything what contains Ukrainian language. Acts of burning of Ukrainian books took place in many occupied towns. And about 3 days ago, this happened again in the city of Rovenki in the occupied Luhansk region. The occupation and war have wrought an incalculable toll on Ukrainian writers, artists, and cultural workers. They are amongst the thousands killed and injured by Ukrainian attacks or detained and threatened by Russian forces. Many have fled their homes and communities to reach safety. Others have given up their cultural work and joined the military forces to defend Ukraine. PEN Ukraine collects information about Ukrainian cultural figures who became victims of the war on its constantly updated webpage, people of culture taken away by the war. And I'll try to share my screen in order to show this informational resource. You can see the web address, pen.org.ua. And here on this list, we have 44 persons as of today, but this list can be much longer because not all names are listed here. Only those whose deaths have been officially confirmed. The names of those who are considered missing or those with whom there is no contact could make a separate long list. It is impossible to pay attention to each of them, or at least to many of them, although each of them was a bright personality. I'll focus only on one case, the case which was already mentioned by Marjana, a very important one and very symbolic one, I'd say. It was the case of a children's writer, Volodymyr Vakulenko. His fate seems to be a vivid illustration of the brutality of this war and the defenselessness of a person against the aggression of the Russian invaders. The news that Volodymyr Vakulenko has been abducted near the town of Izium in the occupied Kharkiv region, together with his son, first emerged in April. The details became known after the liberation of Izium by the Ukrainian army in September. The Russian occupiers first entered the home of Volodymyr in March, seizing phones, documents, and Ukrainian books for checking, all Ukrainian books, which they found in his home library. Volodymyr, who never hid his pro-Ukrainian position, was aware that they would come again. 2 days later, a bus marked with Russian Army's Z sign drove up to Volodymyr's house. The occupiers shoved him into the bus and took off in the direction of the town. None of Vakulenko's relatives had seen him or heard from him since. All the time there was hope that the occupiers were holding him somewhere as a prisoner. After the liberation of the town, a body was found, which in the records of the occupiers was indicated as the body of Vakulenko, but DNA expertise was needed. It was only at the end of November that it was confirmed that the civilian children's writer had been tortured and killed by armed Russian soldiers. The material losses of culture are what we usually talk about last, but they are also colossal, often irreparable. I'll show you the statistics, and I would like to emphasize that this statistics shows only the cases which have been verified by UNESCO. The real situation is much worse. As of October 31, UNESCO has verified damage to 210 cultural sites, including 91 religious sites, 15 museums, 76 buildings of historic or artistic significance, 18 monuments, and 10 libraries. And the following photos show the consequences of bombing of the regional library for youth in the northern city of Chernihiv, also known as Tarnovsky House. Erected at the end of the 18th century, the building survived the shelling by Red Army in 1919 and the Second World War, but it was destroyed as a result of an airstrike by Russian troops in March 2022. The Russians dropped 3 high explosive 500-kilogram bombs on the courtyard of the library and the stadium near it. And as it was in the previous cases, there were no military or any strategic objects nearby. Nothing but hatred for Ukrainian culture can explain the deliberate destruction by the occupiers of the monument to Taras Shevchenko in the town of Borodyanka near Kyiv. Shevchenko is a symbolic figure, a romantic poet who was one of the first to elaborate the formula of Ukrainian national identity in the middle of the 19th century. This monument will remain a symbol of the barbaric Russian attack on Ukrainian culture. I believe that translators and publishers around the world can do a lot, not only to explain the reasons behind the brutal Russian attack on Ukraine, the roots of Russia's imperialism, where the imperial center exists only by absorbing the cultures of its nearest neighbors, but also to show the diversity and self-sufficiency of Ukrainian culture, which is not limited to confronting external threats, is not reduced to the keywords aggression, war, migration, or crisis. To move from alarming reports about the war to a positive representation of Ukrainian culture in a broad historical and geographical context. That's what seems very important to me now. Ukraine is important not because it was attacked by Russia, but Russia attacked Ukraine just because it is important. It is important as an Eastern outpost of European civilization, as a space where apparently the future history of Europe is being written now, as historian Timothy Snyder claims. A lot of important books about Ukraine have already been translated and published abroad, many of them during the last decade. PEN Ukraine presented list of 30 books to understand Ukraine on its page dedicated to the war. And I'll show you this, 30 books to understand Ukraine. You can see the covers of the books, the novels and poems, historical and cultural studies, mostly in English, either originally written in English or translated into English from other languages. But of course, far from everything important has been translated. And here, another project of the Ukrainian PEN in cooperation with Media Initiative Ukrainer will be helpful. It's called 100 Notable Books in Ukrainian. And this can be, now you can see it on our website, pen.org.ua. 100 Notable Books in Ukrainian is a collection of the works that created Ukrainian literature. Now here's a link to the separate website of the project, where you can see the covers of the most important Ukrainian books according to the huge pool of Ukrainian and world experts who have chosen these works among all books written in Ukrainian along the long history of Ukrainian literature. Here you can find both works of the 18th century and books written a few years ago, books that are already somewhat known to the world audience, and the ones that remain completely unknown. Most of them are not translated yet into foreign languages. You can see some of them already translated, but most of them are not. So this is kind of our wish list for foreign translators and publishers, and that's what we can do in order to be helpful in getting oriented in what is important in Ukrainian culture. Separately, we have prepared a list of 10 literary reportage books that will help better understand what and why is happening in Ukraine. Also, you can find it also on our website, war.pen, in a part of our website dedicated to war.pen.org.ua. And here is the collection of these important reportage books about contemporary Ukraine, about the reasons and historical background of Russian aggression against Ukraine, about economical, political, social circumstances in Ukraine. As you can see, most of them has not yet been translated as well. So this can also be taken as our wish list for world publishers and translation. The Ukrainian Book Institute also works a lot on it, preparing annual catalogs of the best Ukrainian books worth translating. You can find their suggestions, their catalogs on their website, bookinstitute.org.ua. Although I don't believe that books can stop wars and mass crimes, I'm not too optimistic in it, because dictators mostly don't read books, except those they wrote themselves. I trust that by trying to do our best, we can make this world at least a little bit happier. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ostap, both for your presentation and your wish list. Then we have today's last presentation from Yuliia Kozlovets, who is a general coordinator at the International Book Arsenal Festival in Kiev. So, Yuliia, please.
Thank you, Kristenn, and thank you to you as the head of the committee for this initiative, for gathering all of us. And I am extremely thankful also to Pansa and to Karine for the initiative to start this talk, because we have met a few times last year in different international fairs and presentations and the joint events. And all the time we're speaking about the freedom to publish. And now we understand that freedom is the main word in these two words, freedom to publish. And of course, publishing is important for all of us. But first, we are thinking about freedom, about the freedom to express ourselves, and freedom to do what we want, and freedom to do what we can do the best. Why I'm here, I'm not the publisher, and I'm not actually even the author as a staff. I'm the coordinating the biggest cultural event devoted to books in Ukraine. And it was like, you know, the circumstances that we started as the part of our team, as the Book Arsenal team. We have started a big work on international advocacy of Ukraine and Ukrainian book culture and Ukrainian book community after the full-scale invasion started. Maybe some of you have seen our appeal the very first day of invasion to the cultural community and to book community on how to help us and how to stand with us. And we are, you know, still doing the same. We are working a lot on the international level, telling people on what's going on, and gathering all our festival resources and our partnerships to make our voices, I mean, Ukrainian voices, louder. I will now share screen a bit, and just I want to mention that I don't want to repeat what my colleagues were saying, and maybe I will try to turn a bit our talk to how the associations and how the communities can be helpful, and how actually we can start to exchange our opinions and to start the discussion on what concrete steps can be done. But first, maybe just a few slides. Can you see the screen? Yeah. Moment. So the actually the yes, this one. Actually, I agree with my colleagues, and probably you have seen a lot of these materials explaining that this is not a war between two countries, and it is not the war between two regimes or something like this, but it's war between two systems, democracy and colonial regime, and between democracy and aggressor. And it's also the war against the culture and against Ukrainian identity. We have a lot of figures today, and you have heard a lot of them, and I just want to pay some attention to some cultural figures which we can mention here. According to the last report from the Minister of Culture of Ukraine, who are trying to monitor all the losses and try to report on all the losses in the cultural sphere, we have this awful figure of 1,271 war crimes against against our cultural infrastructure and cultural objects. It means museums, libraries, galleries, theaters, institutions of art, education. If we will look on these figures, we will understand that it's this systematic deed. It's not occasionally fitting or like it is sometimes discussed in the Russian media, that it's like, you know, the place where a lot of our soldiers were hiding. No, it's systematic deed. It's really the the goal to affect culture, to affect those things which are making us Ukrainians. And from other side point of view, not only cultural institutions and cultural objects are fitted, but also educational one, which is also almost very, very dangerous for the future and for those things which are affecting to our kids and next generations. Here you can see the figures, and you can only imagine 3,000 educational institutions, 3,000 of places where people were just getting the education, where they were just learning something, and a lot of kids are affected and a lot of teachers are affected as well. And here we see the danger for literacy, the danger for education of the new generations, which also is influenced by war. I want also to show you some pictures. Maybe you have seen them, but I want to comment on them because it's something very understandable to all the publishing people. House of Printing in Kharkiv, the picture is here. Kharkiv is the heart of our printing industry. A lot of printing facilities are situated in Kharkiv. It was like, and it is everyday bombing and shelling of this city, which is really very, very near the border, as Yuliia explained to you first. So a lot of printing facilities are very, very much affected by war. A lot of libraries are destroyed or affected or damaged, and there are tremendous losses in the books and in the literary fund of these libraries. And now we have a very big and strong volunteer movement on gathering of books for the libraries on the deoccupied territories, because we see what is Russians are remaining of after leaving the territory which is deoccupied. Librarians were pressed in the occupied territories. Librarians were pressed to destroy Ukrainian literature. There are cases of burning books. It's something like from the prehistoric times. These are not only old pictures from like the very first months of invasion. The last picture here is printing house in Kherson, which was damaged few weeks ago. So it's constantly happening in the country. We can say that publishing community is very much influenced by war, as every community in the country, because a lot of people of Ukraine are volunteering, being in the army, doing their best for the victory. The publishing people are also doing their best. We see here that almost 83% of publishers have employees who volunteer, and or there are people who are in the army and are now on the frontier. I have seen this picture also try to go forward to what I'm proud for. This is picture, the left one is the picture from this Grigory Skovoroda Museum in Skovorodinivka, about which Ostap has told you not so long ago. And the picture to the right is what Ukrainians are doing with what's happening. It's our response to what we are dealing with. After this fitting to the museum, Skovoroda Museum, there was the big exhibition in the center of Kiev, for which this monument, which luckily was damaged but not destroyed fully, was moved to Kiev for this exhibition. And then the exhibition was devoted to the 300th anniversary of Grigory Skovoroda, which was planned to be one of the central cultural events in Ukraine for the last year. So this is how Ukrainians are dealing with the situation. We are trying to understand what we can do, and we are trying to work as much as we can and even more. I have a joke from my American friends who are working for some kind of a business, and they came to the business meeting somewhere in autumn, and somebody from the colleagues, they started to say that, look, there are a lot of tasks, and it's so difficult to manage all of them, and this multitask situation, it's a bit frustrating and doing us a bit not so motivated and so on. And the boss, who had the wife who is Ukrainian, and very, very much familiar with everything what's going on in the country and how Ukrainians are resisting. The boss was listening to this very, very clever speech, and after that he said, look, just be more Ukrainian. And this is what we are asking all of us to do when we are speaking of what we can do. Maybe you will try to understand what we are doing, and you will understand how we are doing it, and try to be a little bit more Ukrainian as well. Because how we are answering to what's going on in Ukraine, we are opening the new bookstores, as for example Vivat Publishing has done the last year in Kiev, in the wartime, in war city, war capital. We are doing the presentations of books in the shelters, and we are doing the poetry readings in the outages, like it's the picture from last week from the Old Lions bookstore in Kiev. We are doing the public events in Mistetsky Arsenal, in which I am working, gathering people in May, after the very few weeks after Russian troops were brought out of Ukrainian capital and the Kiev region was deoccupied. It's something which makes us people, and which makes us human, and which makes us bookish people, truly bookish people, resistant, devoted to what we love more, devoted to our love to books and to what we are doing all our lives. What are the ways for supporting us? Maybe we can start this discussion, and I put here some ideas, and some of them were already you have heard already from my colleagues today. But what I'm asking for the first is some kind of a positive discrimination of Ukraine. Why I am asking it? If I will make the parallel with the feminism, or with the some sensitive topics for which we are we are assuming that the positive discrimination is the right case. So maybe this is also the strategy for us now. Why we need it? Why we are asking for the advocacy of Ukraine, for support, for inviting more Ukrainians, for suspending Russian culture activities and suspending projects involving Russian institutions and individuals. Why we are asking for this, all of this for us? Because there are a lot of conflicts in the world. There are a lot of wars. There are a lot of tragedies, and all people affected by these tragedies and by these wars and conflicts in the world, they need support, and this is true. But we are dealing now with the biggest war in the history of last centuries in the world. The scale of this war and scale of affecting of this war is tremendous, and it affects not only Ukraine, it affects not only our territory. This is the war in the center of Europe. It's the war against the democracy in the world, and it affects this way or that way all of us. Believe me, if Ukraine will not win, which we cannot imagine even, but if we will somehow not win, next will be yours. All of your countries will be affected as well, because this is war against the democracy system, and it is extremely need to understand. What we are asking you to do, and how the international organizations can become more powerful, because from my from my private point of view, in this situation with Russia's war in Ukraine, a lot of international organizations have become powerless, and a lot of them have shown that they can do nothing. They were preparing themselves to affect the crisis, but in the case of crisis, they became, powerless. How it happened? Maybe there is a time to understand how it happens and why. Maybe it's time to understand how the world order has come under so aggressive attack, and how the security system is in ruins now, and what to do. What can we do as a community, as the publishing association, as the professional units to answer this? Maybe there is time to change something, to change mechanisms or improve them. Maybe to invent some new mechanisms, or to come with the new ideas. Let's be honest enough with between ourselves, because we are doing the very similar jobs. We are understanding ourselves better than other people in the world. When we are asking for support, we are asking to support also our cultural institutions and state organizations and NGOs. Why? Because it's the core of the industry, it's the core of the structure, of the cultural structure of the country. And these institutes and these organizations can do a lot. They can do a lot to make people surviving and to make businesses surviving. Like Pan Ukraine is doing with the stipendiums, receiving grants as an organization for giving these stipendiums to authors, to illustrators, to publishers, to private persons, giving tremendous support to the industry. Like the Association of Ukrainian Publishers, who is receiving grants from different countries, and after that giving grants to Ukrainian publishers. So supporting institutions like Mistetsky Arsenal is, and like International Book Arsenal Festival is, you are allowing us to work and to give support to the industry. Why I'm speaking about this? Because I want you to understand that we are not just victims of the war. We are a very active part of the Ukrainian creative community. And we are not sitting and waiting until somebody will help us. We are doing a lot. When I'm asked how to help the Ukrainian publishing, I'm saying just do business with us. Buy rights from Ukrainian publishers. You will help us with this, not only with money, but also giving our voices to our authors and our literators. Distribute Ukrainian published titles between Ukrainian refugees around the world. And for Ukrainian kids, you will help with this to our readers abroad, and you will help Ukrainian publishers buying books from them with the money and the better turnover for them. Distribute books about Ukrainian foreign languages. Buy books, translate them, motivate people to understand what's going on in the region and write new books and new titles about the situation. We are very much asking for collaborative publishing projects, because I'm extremely proud of our publishers and our book people. They are creative enough, they are so talented, they are very fresh voices for Ukraine, for the world agenda. So when you are going to collaborative publishing projects, you will have absolutely reliable partners from our side, and if you understand in which conditions we are working now, you can imagine how resilient and how powerful partners we can be. We are also, of course, asking for crowdfunding campaigns for buying books and for libraries abroad and in Ukraine, because the losses are tremendous, you see. But not only money, the knowledge is also worth, giving us. The mentorship, the expertise, joint projects with exchanging of experience, because I'm absolutely proud of the experience of our publishers, and I'm absolutely, absolutely sure that they can share with the unique experience which they have obtaining right now. And I also want to tell you that the international cultural community has the power. International cultural community and publishing community has the power to help us to end this war. Please donate funds to support Ukrainians in this fight, and encourage your friends and families and colleagues to do the same. Please join and organize the peaceful protests, and press your governments to help us. It's not only our war, it's the war of all the democracy world. And please share info and stories, especially the success stories of your cooperation with Ukrainians. Share our stories of victories, and encourage people to be together and to stay with us together, because staying with us, you will be on the right side, or you will be on the right side in this moment. We ask you for your support in the name of democratic values, and in the name of freedom of choice, and in the name of freedom to publish. Thank you so much for your attention, and I ask you to share with your ideas and with your opinions and maybe with your feedbacks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yuliia, and thanks to all your speeches. I know we are running terribly over time, but I'm happy to stay on, and for those who can, and have some questions and answers. But if I would try to just summing up a little bit, I think that we should look into all the proposals that many of you have been talking about today. And I will talk to Gwanza and James, who have been, and Jose, who have been very important in arranging this event. And I think it's possible for us to see what we can distribute through our channels about your suggestions, and also see if we can take it out to other stakeholders in the book industry. So I will propose that. So we'll talk about it afterwards, but that would be my sort of initial suggestion. I'm happy to take any questions. And Anna, I can see that Anne Bergman from FEP. Please, Anne.
Yes, thank you, Kristenn, and thank you to all the speakers. We know the situation, but to hear it from you, I think it adds a layer of emotion. I just wanted to say that we have last week with Sonia Draga, who was on the call with our vice president and our president. We've met with the European Commission, and we have passed a number of demands for supporting the Ukrainian book sector, and I have to say they were well received, and we will follow up with the European Parliament. I want also just to raise it with the audience that we were awarded a project with the under EU program. The project is called Tales of Ukraine, and we will be publishing at least 300,000 books in Ukrainian and a language of a country that is welcoming children, and they will be distributed for free in schools and libraries. So there are things which are done. We're well aware that it's never enough, but we are trying our best. Thank you.
Бажано, щоб перекласти трошки, що каже Анна.
If this is possible, to have this translated, please. But I would need you to repeat some. I'm really sorry.
Oh no, I can repeat. Just to say that last week we met with the European Commission and we passed a list of measures that we discussed together with the Publishers Bookseller Association and the Ukrainian Book Institute. And we hope that, I mean, the commissioner told us that she would be writing to the member states to insist that when they provide money to Ukraine, they make sure that some of the money is dedicated to books. And the other thing is we have a project, it's called Tales of Ukraine. And we have committed to publish 300,000 books, bilingual books, in Ukrainian and in a number of countries who have welcomed displaced people from Ukraine.
Отже, минулого тижня ми зустрічалися з представниками Європейської комісії, і ми говорили про те, що необхідно, щоб коли будуть виділяти кошти на допомогу Україні, також звернули увагу на те, щоб була виділена допомога саме Українській асоціації видавців та книгорозповсюджувачів. І ми також маємо проєкт, коли ми допомогли надати 300 книжок, які видані 2 мовами.
Я, з вашого дозволу, я хочу вибачитись, я в переліку тих, кому вдячний, не згадав Федерацію європейських видавців. Ми дійсно постійно на контакті і з Інститутом книги, і з нами, і я сподіваюся, що найближчим часом ці контакти, вони, як то кажуть, зміцніють, і ми будемо мати реальну допомогу від Європейської комісії, з якою співпрацює сьогодні Федерація.
I would like to say a huge thank you to the Federation of European Publishers, and I hope that with the help of the EU Commission, we will have future cooperation work. I'm really grateful for everything that has been done so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Jose, please.
Hi, this is not a question, but I've got to run. I've got another call in a few minutes. But before I go, I just wanted to thank Oleksandr and all the speakers, Marjana, the 2 Yulias, I've forgotten someone, but thank you everybody that was part of this today. We had some problems at the beginning, some technical problems, but it's heartening to see that so many people have stayed online to the end. And I think that that's because the stories that you all told were gripping. They were equal measures tragic and inspiring. And we stand in solidarity with the Ukrainian Publishers and Booksellers Association and all our other colleagues in Ukraine who are trying their best to tell these stories and to survive. So I want to thank you, and we're proud that we're here together, and see you soon, Oleksandr. See you soon in a free and different Ukraine in the future. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jose.
Дякую. Так. На зв'язку, так.
I could see in the chat that there were a question about giving contact information to our Ukrainian colleagues, and I'm sure that James will handle that and be able to help with that. I think we have Pavel, please. I think you're muted, Pavel.
Now it's okay? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
so thank you very much for all Ukrainian colleagues that share everything with us. I represent Levnetic, is educational publishers and ethic providers from Poland. So we have started our, let's say, help for Ukrainian children, which came to us. And maybe it's some small part of help, but we spread those information that we have such resources on our free platform for Ukrainian children to learn math, for example. So I can share a link, and maybe the other publishers can use it, or they will have idea how we can, for example, expand those resources, because we have prepared those books as an interactive one, so that they are working on the computers and so on. They can be also used by the parents of the Ukrainian teachers if there is a need. We also created on our own Ukrainian Polish phrase books, so they can learn Polish language. And if any publisher or people will be interested in cooperation or spreading such a help in this area, so welcome to grow this material. So I will just send a link, and you can share, or maybe it will be helpful for other children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pavel. Are there any more questions or comments? Yes, Gvansa, please.
Thank you, Kristenn. Hello to everyone. First of all, thank you to all the speakers, of course, for really heartbreaking speeches. It was not easy to listen to what you have shared with us. Of course, we know this, we have heard a lot, but Yuliia mentioned that we need to learn. So this, learn how you work, how you live through this war. And of course, the reason of this meeting was that we want to learn, to hear from you, to learn and to understand how we can be helpful. For IPA, of course, it was very important, this meeting, and several people already mentioned that, Jose also mentioned that people stayed by the end, in spite of that we had the technical problems, and it means that we have a big interest, and it means that we need to follow up with this work and do more for your support. And I want to thank you, first of all, of course, for being so brave, because, of course, publishing work is not easy work, but it's very difficult. I can understand under the bombs and in shelters to do this work and to think about the books and literature, but we understand, of course, all of us who are presented in this group, we understand the power of the word. And in spite of that, Ostap mentioned that we maybe don't think that the word can and the book can stop the war, but I'm sure that it can have a huge impact. So of course you have to go ahead and to do your work as much as you can, and we are here to support you. So of course we are thinking how to follow up, and I just want to encourage all our colleagues from around the globe who are represented here that of course IPA is open to get any suggestions, any ideas from all of you, because we are happy to collect all the information, all the ideas, how we can be helpful as the global publishing organization. And of course, after what we have collected, all the ideas, we are happy to proceed to go ahead with this work and of course, to help, but in equal way, as we were asked from our colleagues. We are not pitying you at all. We are proud of you, what you do, how you work, and we are learning from you, because this is very important. And I think we have learned something very important in freedom to publish as well, because we are always discussing freedom to publish from different perspectives, but it was very interesting to discuss it through the war, freedom to publish in war, how war affects the freedom to publish. What I want also to suggest, I think that I read the message in the chat that if this if the speeches will be published somewhere, and I think it will be very nice follow-up if we collect your speeches and publish it at our blog, IPA blog, and spread these speeches. It will be very interesting for those people who didn't manage today to attend our meeting, and also it will include all the important links and informations, I'm sure, which is also important to help you in your work. So thank you so much. I'm very touched. It's very emotional for me once again, what I listened here, and thank you so much for all your contribution. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Pansa, and I think this can sort of sum up this meeting. We really appreciate it, all your descriptions, and I support what you said, Pansa, that we will try to collect this information and see how we can publish it further on. So I think from the whole, not only the publishing community, but the whole book community around the world, we support you. So Slava Ukraini.
Дякуємо, щиро дякуємо вам за організацію зустрічі. І я сподіваюся, що цей контакт стане таким поштовховим до розвитку наших стосунків і до конкретних форм допомоги. І я хочу сказати, що український караван іде незалежно від бажання російських політиків, Путіна і так далі. І ми обов'язково переможемо. Слава Україні!
Thank you so much for arranging this event today. Thank you for your cooperation. And I hope that this meeting that we had today would be a good push for us, for our future work together and cooperation, and for specific assistance and support. And I can assure you that Ukraine will carry on in spite of all the efforts of the Russian Federation to stop us on the way. And thank you so much, and glory to Ukraine.
And thank you, Tanya, for your work. It's not been easy. Thank you very much for helping us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for your warm words, and thank you for your all support of Ukraine. Never forget it.
Ми дуже вдячні за всю вашу допомогу, і ми ніколи не забудемо за цю підтримку, яку ви нам надаєте. Дякуємо.
So thank you, everybody. We will see each other again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristenn, also for this moderation. Thank you.
Дуже дякуємо. До скорої зустрічі. На все добре. До побачення.
Thank you.
Staying over time. Thank you, Yuliia.